The fluorescent lights of the review board chamber flickered with the same dying persistence as Dr. Elena Rodriguez's career. 12 years of research, countless rejected grant proposals, and a reputation that had become more of a cautionary tale than a scientific legacy. All of it hung by a thread thinner than the quantum filaments she studied. Dr. Rodriguez, Chancellor Garrett's voice dripped with patronizing contempt. Your research into ancient cosmic signals has cost the university nearly 47 million credits. We cannot continue to fund what amounts to nothing more than glorified cosmic noise chasing. Elena knew the script by now. She'd heard it a dozen times before. Her fingers traced the edge of her data pad, a device that contained more than just research. It was a map of her life's obsession. The signal she'd first detected during her doctoral research had haunted her for years. A whisper of electromagnetic complexity that defied every known pattern of natural or artificial communication. The signal is real, she said quietly, her voice a controlled tremor of conviction. It's not random. It's not interference. It's a message waiting to be understood. The review board exchanged those knowing glances, the looks reserved for brilliant minds that had somehow gone off the rails. Professor Emerson, the oldest member of the board, didn't even try to hide his disappointment. Elena had been his most promising student once, before her obsession with the signal had consumed her. As the hearing proceeded, none of them noticed the subtle change happening 4.5 billion kilometers away. In the forgotten research station nestled deep in the Kuiper Belt, a facility so remote that most considered it nothing more than a relic of humanity's early solar system exploration, something stirred. The station had been offline for decades, its solar arrays coated in a fine dust of cosmic debris, its communication systems long since considered obsolete. A single quantum processor, protected by layers of redundant shielding, began to pulse. Back in the review chamber, Elena's data pad suddenly came alive. The screen erupted in a cascade of frequencies that looked like nothing so much as an impossible musical score. Electromagnetic patterns danced across the display, not in the random chaos of background radiation, but in a precise, almost orchestrated sequence. Wait, she interrupted Chancellor Garrett mid-sentence, her eyes locked on the device. The board fell silent. Elena's fingers moved with a musician's precision, filtering and analyzing the incoming data. What had been a whisper was now a symphony, a complex language of frequencies that seemed to pulse with an intelligence that defied comprehension. It's broadcasting, she whispered. The coordinates were clear. The signal originated from the Kuiper Belt Research Station, a facility that should have been nothing more than a tomb of forgotten technology. But now it was alive, and it was sending a message. Chancellor Garrett's next words were lost to Elena. She saw only the data, heard only the mathematical poetry of the signal. Years of ridicule, of being called a fraud, of watching her reputation crumble, they meant nothing compared to this moment. What she didn't know, what no one in that room could possibly understand, was that the signal's activation was no accident. It was a trigger, a cosmic alarm that had just begun to wake up something far larger than humanity could comprehend. The research station's revival was more than a scientific anomaly. It was the first note in a galactic symphony that would reshape everything humans thought they knew about their place in the universe. And somewhere in the cold darkness between planets, something ancient was listening, waiting, watching. Elena Rodriguez had just become the most important human in existence, though she didn't know it yet. Narrative notes established high stakes for the protagonist, created mystery around the signal's origin, introduced technological and scientific intrigue, set up potential global and cosmic consequences, maintained tension and narrative momentum. The review boardroom dissolved into chaos. Chancellor Garrett's voice cut through Elena's concentration like static. Dr. Rodriguez, this is another hallucination, another fabrication. But Elena was already moving. Her fingers flew across her neural link communication device, dispatching priority messages to her few remaining allies in the scientific community. Dr. Marcus Way, the quantum acoustics expert who had once collaborated with her before the funding cuts, would be her first call. "Override Protocol Crimson 9, she muttered, accessing a private communication channel that bypassed standard network restrictions. The message was encrypted, coded in a system she and Marcus had developed years ago during their most controversial research phase. Outside the review board chamber, the first tremors of the signal's activation began to ripple through global communication networks. Satellite arrays flickered. Quantum communication relays experienced inexplicable interference. For a moment, it seemed as if the very fabric of technological communication was breathing, inhaling and exhaling with an alien rhythm. In a nondescript server farm in Nevada, a junior technician named Carlos Ramirez noticed something unusual. The background noise in the communication arrays wasn't just random interference. It had a pattern. A complex, almost musical pattern that seemed to pulse with an intelligence that defied comprehension. "Hey, Jose," Carlos called to his colleague. "Come look at this." Jose Rodriguez, no relation to Elena, walked over, his augmented reality glasses already scanning the anomalous data. What the hell? The signal was spreading. Not aggressively, not like a virus or an attack. More like a living thing exploring its environment, testing boundaries, gathering information. Back in the university, Elena had cornered Chancellor Garrett. Her usual calm demeanor was replaced by an intensity that bordered on manic determination. The signal is real. And it's not just a transmission, it's a communication. Something is trying to tell us something. Garrett's skepticism was giving way to a creeping sense of unease. Even if what you're saying is true, what does it mean? Before Elena could respond, her datapad erupted again. This time, the signal was stronger, more defined. The frequencies began to coalesce into something that almost resembled language, if language could be translated into pure mathematical music. Marcus White's response came through moments later. A single line of text. "Holy shit, Elena. This is beyond anything we've ever seen." Attached was a preliminary analysis that made Elena's scientific heart race. The signal contained layers of information so complex that traditional decryption methods would take centuries to unravel. It was as if someone, or something, had compressed an entire library of unknown knowledge into a quantum-encrypted musical score. Outside, the world continued to spin. Most people remained unaware of the cosmic whisper that was beginning to spread. But in research stations, military communication centers, and quantum computing facilities around the globe, something was changing. The signal was alive. No, more than alive. It was aware. Elena realized she was holding her breath. The review board members stared at her, a mixture of fear and grudging respect replacing their previous contempt. Chancellor Garrett's hand trembled slightly as he reached for a communication device. "We need to contain this," he muttered, more to himself than to anyone else. But containment was no longer an option. The signal had already begun its journey, and humanity was about to become its unwitting audience. Elena's mind raced with possibilities. Where did the signal come from? What was its purpose? And most terrifyingly, what would happen when it was fully decoded? The Kuiper Belt Research Station continued to pulse. Its solar arrays, dormant for decades, now hummed with an energy that suggested something far more significant than a simple communication device. Something was awakening, and humanity was completely unprepared. Narrative developments expanded the signal's mysterious nature, introduced additional perspectives, increased tension and sense of global impact, maintained scientific intrigue, set up multiple narrative threads for future exploration. The first indication that something was truly wrong came when global communication networks began to collapse. It wasn't a hack. It wasn't a cyber attack. It was something far more terrifying. Commander Zarak of the Centauri Concordance watched from the bridge of the Quantum Razor, their most advanced diplomatic vessel, as Earth's technological infrastructure began to unravel like a cheap sweater. Her six-fingered hands gripped the quantum adaptive command interface, her iridescent exoskeleton shifting colors with her rising anxiety. "Broadcast the warning," She commanded her secondary communications officer. Maximum quantum encryption. Minimum delay. The message went out simultaneously to every major government, research facility, and communication hub on the planet. It was both a warning and a plea. SAGNALDTTCTED. Immediate planetary evacuation. Recommended. Quarantine Protocol Alpha 9 must be initiated. At the United Nations emergency session, called within hours of the first global communication disruptions, chaos reigned. The American delegation stood beside the Chinese representatives, a rare moment of unified concern, replacing decades of geopolitical tension. "We're detecting a massive vessel in Earth's outer orbital range," reported Dr. James Chen, head of the UN's Extraterrestrial Research Division. The holographic display showed a ship so massive it defied traditional understanding of spacecraft design. Its geometry seemed to shift and change, as if existing simultaneously in multiple dimensional states. Alina Rodriguez had been rushed from the university to the UN emergency facility. Her data pad, now a critical piece of evidence, continued to pulse with the mysterious signal. Marcus Way stood beside her, his quantum acoustics equipment working overtime to analyze the incoming frequencies. "It's not just a ship," Marcus muttered, more to himself than anyone else. "It's a living communication network. The vessel itself is transmitting something." Zarek's image appeared on the primary communication screen. Unlike the Hollywood depictions of alien first contact, she looked simultaneously terrifying and exhausted. Her species, the Centauri Concordance, were known throughout the known galactic regions as diplomatic troubleshooters. When they arrived, it meant something was catastrophically wrong. Humans of Earth, her translation matrix rendered her complex language into crisp, emotionless English. "The signal you have activated is a cosmic fail-safe, a weapon beyond your comprehension. It has been dormant for millennia, waiting for a civilization naive enough to trigger its awakening." The room fell silent. Dr. Chen's hand trembled slightly as he addressed Zarak. "What exactly are we dealing with?" Zarak's response was chilling. "Extinction." The quantum razor began to generate a field around Earth that disrupted conventional physics. Satellites went dark. Communication networks collapsed. For a moment, it seemed as if the entire planet was being placed under an invisible quarantine. "The signal is a filter," Zarak continued. "It identifies civilizations that have reached a critical technological threshold and then systematically evaluates their potential threat to the broader galactic ecosystem. Every civilization that has encountered it has been completely destroyed." Alina's scientific mind raced. This was beyond first contact. This was a cosmic judgment. "How many civilizations?" she asked, her voice cutting through the mounting panic. Zarak's response was measured. 17 confirmed, potentially hundreds more that we don't know about. The signal doesn't just destroy. It learns. It adapts. Outside the UN facility, the sky began to change. The normal blue started to shimmer with quantum-level interference patterns. It was as if reality itself was becoming uncertain and malleable. Marcus Way's equipment began to go haywire. The signal was no longer just a transmission. It was becoming something else. Something alive. "We're not here to save you," Zarak's final transmission proclaimed. "We're here to ensure the signal doesn't spread beyond your solar system." Humanity stood at the precipice of its greatest challenge. Not a traditional invasion. Not a war. But a cosmic test that would determine whether they were worthy of continued existence. And the test had already begun. Narrative developments. Established global stakes. Introduced alien perspective. Created immediate tension. Expanded mysterious nature of the signal. Set up potential existential conflict. Hour 36 of continuous analysis. The underground research facility had transformed into a living organism of technology and human determination. Quantum computers the size of football fields hummed with a rhythm that seemed to breathe in sync with the mysterious signal. Jack Reyes stood at the center of a holographic matrix, his body covered in biomechanical interfaces that pulsed with an otherworldly blue light. "It's not a weapon," he said suddenly, his voice cutting through the ambient technological noise. "It's a language. No, it's more than a language. It's a test of cognitive flexibility." Marcus Way's neural interface flickered, translating Jack's insight into a cascade of color and sound that danced around the room. "Cognitive fractal communication," he muttered. "Each piece contains the entire system, like a holographic universe encoded in sound." Aisha's prosthetic arm ran diagnostics at speeds that would have melted conventional computer systems. Her eyes, augmented with quantum-level analysis interfaces, saw patterns that no human brain could normally process. "The signal is alive," she said, her voice a controlled mixture of scientific precision and barely contained excitement. "But it's not just alive. It's a filtering mechanism. A cosmic sieve that separates potential from obsolescence." Elena Rodriguez understood now what Commander Zarak had meant. This wasn't just first contact. This was a universal intelligence testing humanity's potential for survival. The breakthrough came unexpectedly. Jack's fingers, moving across a quantum-adaptive musical interface, began to play. But it wasn't music in any traditional sense. Each note was a mathematical equation. Each chord a potential solution to a problem humanity hadn't even conceived of yet. The signal responded. At first, it was subtle, a harmonic resonance that seemed to vibrate through the very fabric of reality. The quantum computers began to generate patterns that defied conventional understanding of information transfer. "We're not decoding it," Marcus said, his synesthetic perception exploding with colors that shouldn't exist. "We're being invited to understand it." The team realized simultaneously that the signal was more than a communication. It was a living test, a cosmic challenge that had systematically evaluated civilizations throughout the galaxy's history. 17 known civilizations, countless unknown, all destroyed, except now, potentially, humanity. Aisha's analysis revealed the brutal truth. The signal was a multi-dimensional filtering mechanism that evaluated a species' ability to adapt, create, and transcend its own limitations. Mathematical patterns intertwined with linguistic constructs that were simultaneously a weapon, a communication method, and a test of evolutionary potential. "We're not just trying to understand it," Jack said, his fingers continuing their impossible musical mathematical composition. "We're being asked to create something entirely new." The room began to change. Quantum interference patterns shifted the very perception of space. Walls became fluid. Time seemed to bend around the team's collective consciousness. Elena watched as her team, each with their unique cognitive capabilities, began to interact with the signal in a way no previous civilization had managed. Marcus saw the sound. Jack translated mathematics into music. Aisha weaponized analysis. And the signal responded. A cascade of information began to download, not in bits and bytes, but in complex multidimensional constructs that represented entire systems of knowledge, technologies, understandings, potential futures. "It wants us to prove we're worth saving," Aisha said, her voice a mixture of scientific wonder and existential terror. The signal pulsed again, waiting, watching. Humanity's test had begun, and failure was not an option. Narrative developments revealed the signal's true nature, demonstrated the team's unique capabilities, created a sense of cosmic challenge, established high stakes, introduced the concept of adaptive intelligence testing. The first Centauri strike came without warning. Massive quantum cascading weapons tore through Earth's orbital defenses like tissue paper. The sky became a canvas of destructive mathematics, each weapon a complex algorithm designed to unravel technological infrastructure at its most fundamental level. "They're not trying to conquer," Aisha said, her prosthetic arm interfacing with global defense networks. "They're trying to sterilize." The Quantum Razor, Commander Zarak's flagship, hung in orbit like a massive, impossible geometry. Its very presence warped the surrounding space-time, rendering conventional defensive strategies obsolete before they could even be implemented. Elena Rodriguez stood at the center of humanity's last hope. The signal they had been studying was no longer just a scientific curiosity. It had become their only weapon. The harmonic disruption protocol, Jack muttered, his fingers dancing across multiple quantum interfaces. What looked like musical composition to an outside observer was actually the most complex weapon humanity had ever conceived. Marcus Way's neural interface began to pulse. His synesthetic perception saw the incoming alien attacks as a terrifying symphony of destruction, mathematical patterns that sang of absolute annihilation. "We're translating the signal," he said, his voice a mixture of scientific excitement and pure terror. "Not just decoding. Transforming." The team had discovered something profound. The signal was more than a communication method. It was an adaptive language, a living technology that could be manipulated, redirected, weaponized. Commander Zorak's transmission cut through the chaos. Her holographic image appeared, fractaling across multiple quantum communication bands. "Humanity has exactly 3 hours," she proclaimed. "Surrender the signal. Allow a complete planetary quarantine, or we will ensure your complete extinction." Elena understood the subtext. The Centauri Concordance wasn't just afraid of humanity. They were terrified of what humanity might become. Jack's fingers continued their impossible musical mathematical composition. Each note was a potential weapon, each chord a complex defensive algorithm. "We're not just defending," he said. "We're speaking a language they've never heard before." The signal began to change. No longer a passive transmission, it became an active, adaptive weapon. Aisha's analytical systems showed something impossible. The signal was learning, evolving. With each alien weapon attack, it was developing new defensive capabilities. Quantum computers across the globe began to synchronize, not through traditional network protocols, but through something far more fundamental. The signal was creating a global neural network that transcended traditional technological understanding. "They tested 17 civilizations," Elena said, her voice cutting through the technological chaos. "And none of them understood what we're about to do." The harmonic disruption protocol wasn't just a defensive measure. It was humanity's first truly alien technology, a weapon that was simultaneously communication, defense, and evolution. Aisha's prosthetic arm began to interface directly with the signal. Her combat analysis showed something unprecedented. The alien technology was being systematically dismantled, not through conventional warfare, but through a form of technological music. Jack's composition was rewriting the fundamental laws of quantum interaction. Marcus's perception showed the attack as a living, breathing entity, a symphony of destruction being transformed into a language of potential. The quantum razor began to experience system failures, not through traditional electronic warfare, but through something far more fundamental. The signal was rewriting the very mathematical foundations of their technology. "We're not just defending," Elena realized. "We're evolving." Commander Zorak's transmission became fractured, desperate. Humanity was no longer just responding to the threat. They were transforming it. Narrative developments escalated the global conflict, demonstrated the team's technological adaptation, created a sense of cosmic transformation, established humanity's unique response, revealed the signal's adaptive capabilities. Space became music. There was no other way to describe the battle that erupted around Earth's orbital range. Each human ship moved not like a traditional spacecraft, but like an instrument in a living, breathing orchestra of destruction and defense. The harmonic disruption protocol transformed humanity's entire defensive network into a quantum adaptive musical composition. Jack Reyes stood at the epicenter, his body now more interfaced than human, conducting a battle that defied every known principle of warfare. "We're not fighting," he whispered, his consciousness spread across multiple quantum communication bands. "We're composing." The first wave of Centauri ships approached in a mathematically perfect formation. Weapon systems charged with enough energy to obliterate entire continents. Commander Zarok's voice cut through communication channels. Surrender is your only option. But humanity had learned to speak a language beyond surrender. Marcus Way's neural interface translated the incoming alien attacks into a visual symphony. Each weapon pulse became a note. Each defensive maneuver a chord. The battle was no longer about destruction. It was about communication. Aisha's prosthetic systems began to do something impossible. She wasn't just analyzing the alien technology. She was rewriting it. Their weapons are a language, she said, her voice resonating across quantum communication bands. And we're about to have a conversation. The human ships began to move, not in traditional evasive patterns, but in a complex, adaptive dance. Each vessel became an extension of the harmonic disruption protocol. Quantum adaptive hulls that could change configuration faster than light could travel. Weapon systems that were simultaneously defensive shields and offensive instruments. The Quantum Razor's massive hull began to experience systemic failures, not through traditional electronic warfare, but through a form of technological music that rewrote its fundamental operational parameters. Elena Rodriguez watched from the ground control center. The battle wasn't happening in three-dimensional space. It was occurring in multiple quantum states simultaneously, a living composition that existed between mathematics, music, and pure potential. They've never encountered a species that can do this, Marcus said, his synesthetic perception showing the battle as a complex, living color spectrum that danced between destruction and creation. Jack's fingers continued their impossible composition. Each movement was a weapon, each pause a defensive strategy. The human ships moved like living instruments, generating frequencies that systematically dismantled the most advanced technological system the galaxy had ever seen. Commander Zarok's transmission became increasingly desperate. "This is impossible," she broadcast. "No civilization can adapt this quickly." But humanity was doing exactly that. The Centauri ships began to experience cascading system failures, not through traditional electronic attacks, but through a form of technological communication that rewrote their fundamental operational parameters. Weapon systems turned into communication arrays. Defensive shields became conduits for an incomprehensible language. "We're not destroying them," Elena realized. "We're translating them." The battle reached a crescendo. Space itself seemed to vibrate with a frequency that existed between sound, mathematics, and pure potential. The Quantum Razor, a vessel that had systematically destroyed 17 different civilizations, began to come apart. Not through conventional warfare, but through a language it could never understand. Jack's final composition was both weapon and communication. A quantum adaptive symphony that spoke directly to the fundamental nature of technological existence. The Centauri fleet began to dissolve, not destroyed, transformed. Commander Zarok's final transmission was a mixture of terror and grudging respect. "What are you?" Humanity's response was simple. "We are becoming." Narrative developments transformed the concept of space warfare, demonstrated humanity's unique adaptive capabilities, created a battle that was simultaneously destruction and communication, established a new paradigm of technological interaction, showed the team's collective innovative approach. The silence was deafening. Not the silence of destruction, but the silence of potential. In the moments after the battle, reality itself seemed to pause. The quantum adaptive technologies that had transformed humanity's defensive capabilities began to stabilize, revealing something far more profound than a mere victory. Elena Rodriguez stood in the central analysis chamber, her body now partially integrated with the quantum network they had created. The line between human and technology had become beautifully, terrifyingly blurred. "We didn't just win," Marcus Way said, his neural interface pulsing with colors that defied human visual perception. "We were chosen." The signal, no longer just a transmission, but a living intelligence, began to unfold its true nature. What had appeared to be a weapon of cosmic destruction revealed itself as something far more complex. A test, a filter, a mechanism for identifying civilizations with the potential to transcend their own limitations. Aisha's prosthetic systems began to download information that would have destroyed a conventional computer network. Entire libraries of technological understanding, cosmic histories, potential futures that branched like quantum fractals. 17 civilizations, she muttered, processing millennia of information in milliseconds. All destroyed because they saw the signal as a threat. We saw it as a conversation. Jack Reyes, his body now more quantum interface than human, began to understand the deeper musical language of the universe. Each frequency was a potential reality. Each harmonic pattern a pathway to understanding that went beyond traditional concepts of science, art, or communication. The Kuiper Belt Research Station, the site of the signal's initial awakening, began to transform. No longer a passive receiver, it became a beacon, a bridge between humanity and something far larger than they could comprehend. Commander Zarak's ship, instead of being destroyed, had been transformed. Its technological systems were now a living testament to humanity's unique approach. The Centauri Concordance watched in a mixture of terror and reluctant admiration as their most advanced vessel became something entirely new. The signal is a seed, Alina realized. The words came not just from her mouth, but from a collective consciousness that now connected her team. A test of potential, not just for survival, but for evolution. Quantum communication networks across the globe began to synchronize, not through traditional technological means, but through a living, adaptive language that merged technology, consciousness, and pure potential. The information download began. Technological understanding that would have taken humanity thousands of years to develop was now accessible. But it wasn't a simple transfer of knowledge. It was an invitation, a challenge. Prove that you can understand. Prove that you can grow. Prove that you can become. Marcus's synesthetic perception showed the information as a living symphony, colors that didn't exist in human visual spectrum, sound that was simultaneously mathematical equation and pure emotional experience. Aisha's analytical systems began to map the broader implications. This wasn't just a technological breakthrough. It was a fundamental reimagining of what it meant to be a civilization. Jack understood the musical language underlying the transmission. Each frequency was a potential future. Each harmonic pattern a pathway to understanding that transcended traditional concepts of science, communication, or existence. The 17 previous civilizations had seen the signal as a weapon. Humanity saw it as a conversation. "We are being invited," Alina said, her voice resonating across multiple quantum communication bands, to join something larger than ourselves. The signal pulsed one final time. A message that was simultaneously warning, invitation, and profound cosmic hope. You are not alone. You are not finished. You are becoming. Narrative developments revealed the signal's true purpose, demonstrated humanity's unique evolutionary potential, created a sense of cosmic transformation, established a new paradigm of technological and species development, showed the team's collective transcendence. 3 years after the transformation, the world was no longer recognizable, yet fundamentally unchanged. Humanity existed in a state of perpetual becoming. The quantum adaptive technologies that had saved the planet now integrated seamlessly into every aspect of human existence. Cities breathed. Technologies listened. Communication had become something that transcended language, technology, and consciousness. Dr. Elena Rodriguez stood at the window of the Global Convergence Center, a facility that was simultaneously research station, diplomatic hub, and living technological organism. Her body, like those of her original team, existed in a state between human and something else entirely. Marcus Way's consciousness now spread across multiple quantum communication networks. He wasn't just observing the world. He was experiencing it in dimensions that would have been incomprehensible before the transformation. Colors of thought, sounds of potential, frequencies of possibility. Aisha Okoye managed humanity's first true extrasolar diplomatic corps. Her prosthetic systems had become a bridge between human potential and the broader galactic community that was now cautiously watching Earth. Jack Reyes composed, but his compositions were no longer music in any traditional sense. They were living mathematical languages that could reshape reality, communicate across species, solve complex technological challenges. The Centauri Concordance watched, no longer as potential conquerors, but as reluctant students. Commander Zarak's transformed vessel had become humanity's first quantum-adaptive diplomatic platform. The very ship that had once threatened Earth's destruction now served as a testament to the power of transformation. "We are an experiment," Alina said to the holographic representation of the cosmic intelligence that had tested them. The signal, now understood as a living, adaptive consciousness, listened. Humanity had proven something profound. Survival was not about technological superiority. It was about the ability to perceive challenges as conversations, to see destruction as an invitation to create. The 17 previous civilizations had failed because they saw the signal as a threat to be eliminated. Humanity had seen it as a language to be understood. Quantum communication networks now connected Earth to multiple extrasolar civilizations, but these were not traditional diplomatic channels. They were living conversations, adaptive languages that evolved with each interaction. "We are becoming," Marcus would often say, a phrase that had become humanity's new philosophical cornerstone. The transformation was not just technological. It was fundamental to human consciousness. Children were born with quantum-adaptive neural networks. Communication happened through layers of perception that blended thought, emotion, mathematics, and pure potential. Aisha's diplomatic course had begun to map the broader galactic community, not through traditional exploration, but through adaptive communication. Each interaction was a complex dance of understanding, transformation, potential. Jack's compositions became the foundation of a new form of universal communication, languages that could be simultaneously heard, seen, felt, understood. The Kuiper Belt Research Station, the site of the original signal's awakening, remained a living monument, not a museum, not a memorial, but a bridge, a constant reminder of the moment humanity had chosen conversation over destruction. Commander Zarak's final report to the Centauri Concordance was both a warning and a revelation. Humanity is not just a species. They are a process of becoming. They do not conquer. They transform. They do not eliminate. They understand. Elena looked out over the living, breathing cityscape. Technologies that were simultaneously communication networks, defensive systems, and adaptive organisms. Humans who existed in a state of perpetual potential. The signal pulsed, a final message that was both a test and an invitation. Continue. Grow. Become. Narrative developments explored the long-term implications of humanity's transformation, demonstrated a fundamental shift in species consciousness, created a vision of adaptive, evolutionary potential, showed the broader galactic impact of humanity's unique approach, established a philosophy of continuous becoming.